All right, so let's unpack this. We're diving into a legal conflict that is so massive, so intertwined with fame and finance that it's really pulled back the curtain on the whole idea of the celebrity power couple.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking, of course, about Angelina Jolie's explosive legal battle against Brad Pitt. The number you see everywhere is around $350 million.
Yeah, that's the headline figure.
Exactly. And if you only read the headlines, you see that number, you see the names. But when you really dive into the sources, the court filings, you find something, well, something far more compelling.
And what's fascinating here is precisely that gap, the separation between the headline and the actual foundation of the case. This has become really a defining moment in understanding how wealth, control, and these very personal family dynamics all collide when you're operating at that level of stardom.
Right.
This isn't just a messy divorce. It's a masterclass in how power relationships are legally and very publicly dismantled.
Absolutely. The stack of sources we've gone through treats this almost like a pure analysis of power and consequence. It's like a corporate dissolution playing out on a global stage.
Yes.
So our mission for this deep dive is to pull out the 5 key revelations that move way beyond that $350 million price tag. We want to reveal the deeper structural truths about what happens when a partnership of that size just completely collapses.
And we should acknowledge the complexity right up front. I mean, there are serious allegations, intense power struggles, and really profound personal consequences that go far beyond fame.
Of course.
But by focusing on the legal and financial strategies you see in the filings, you get this incredible structural insight into a very high-stakes conflict. And it offers a universal lesson about partnership, really, no matter what your personal net worth is.
Okay, so let's jump right into the core conflict, because the sources immediately pivot away from the simple question of how much money to the much deeper one of who holds the keys. What is the ultimate fight here?
That takes us straight to revelation number 1. This is a battle over power and decision-making authority, not just a simple division of money.
And what does that mean practically in the court documents? Because when people hear a number like that, they assume it's all about cash distribution.
It's so much more complicated than cash. The legal filings make it crystal clear that the heart of this lawsuit is a struggle over control, specifically control of business interests and personal autonomy.
Okay.
When you've got joint ownership in a major venture like the Chateau Miraval winery, it stops being about dividing the asset. It starts being about controlling the destiny of that asset.
So it shifts into corporate mechanics. We're talking about things like board seats and veto power.
Precisely. And this is the bigger picture. It really highlights how these financial partnerships between spouses, especially ones structured like corporations, can turn into what you could only call, well, legal weapons when the trust just collapses. The fight is over operational decisions, the right to sell your interest, who appoints directors, basically the ability to freeze out the opposition, the autonomy, the ability for either person to move on independently. That becomes the whole game.
That's such a vital insight for anyone in a business partnership. It shows how the initial contract, the thing you build on trust, becomes the actual battleground when that trust is gone.
It is. The structure of the capital gets weaponized. And that leads us directly to the second revelation, which is all about the fundamental turning point in the relationship itself and how those past events are now being used to define the legal dispute today.
So what's the legal framework being used there to redefine the current conflict?
That is revelation number 2. Past allegations are positioned as the foundational turning point.
Tell us a bit more about that. I mean, it's one thing for the past to inform a relationship, but how does it fundamentally change the legal strategy years down the line?
What's really interesting here is the legal framing. Jolie's filings argue that certain past allegations, they aren't a closed chapter that just ended the marriage.
Right.
Instead, they are strategically positioned as the fundamental moment that didn't just alter the personal relationship, but that it voided the implicit agreements the business interests depended on.
Oh, wow. So that's a key legal maneuver.
Yeah.
You're arguing the original incident was so severe, it destroyed the basis of the entire partnership, the good faith, and that makes any subsequent independent actions necessary, justified even.
That is a perfect summary. It's crucial for understanding the whole strategy because the conflict is framed around this narrative of fundamental change. The argument is basically, because event X happened, the conditions for a trusting joint business venture ceased to exist. Therefore, the business relationship was irrevocably changed, justifying everything I did after that.
That's a staggering legal argument. It means the conflict is truly ongoing, and the past is constantly being used as the primary lens to see the present legal strategy.
It forces the court to look backward to justify actions being taken today. It elevates a personal incident into the very cornerstone of a massive corporate law battle.
So the fight for control over the assets Revelation 1 naturally just raises the stakes. And this complexity immediately forces us to ask, what happens when these power struggles spill beyond the courtroom and into the family unit?
Exactly.
Moving into our second segment, we have to talk about the personal consequences. What's the emotional gravity that the sources emphasize?
That would be revelation number 3. The children are repeatedly placed at the center of the storm.
It's remarkable, isn't it? Despite the huge sums, $350 million, the filings keep coming back to the emotional impact of this long, drawn-out conflict on the children. This is the part that resonates far beyond celebrity gossip.
The documents emphasize the damaging effects of this prolonged legal warfare on family stability, on emotional well-being. It's an unavoidable part of any high-conflict divorce, but here it's just magnified by the fame and the wealth.
But doesn't that open the door to accusations of, using genuine family concerns as a tactical leverage point in the financial fight? It's a cynical question, I know, but in a conflict this high stakes.
It's a necessary, critical question. The legal strategy is implicitly demanding accountability for the family's long-term health, not just for financial divisions. And that focus reframes the entire lawsuit.
So whether it's genuine concern or legal strategy or, let's be honest, probably a mix of both, it shifts the narrative.
It does. It shifts it away from just personal vindication or fighting over money and frames it as a fight over the long-term consequences for the people who never chose to be in the spotlight.
It transforms the story from a business divorce to a fight for family stability. That makes the stakes feel infinitely higher, and it adds this intense public pressure to the whole thing.
And the sources show us that's one of the highest prices paid here. The inability to shield the most vulnerable people from the public and legal toxicity.
Okay, let's look at Revelation 4. This feels like a major cautionary tale for anyone, celebrity or not, who's entering into complex contracts. What's the lesson here?
This is revelation number 4. The collapse of adversarial deals, which means private agreements start having very public consequences.
So this is basically the celebrity version of what happens when the joint ownership agreement you made for your small business, the one you structured on trust years ago, is suddenly being read aloud in a public courtroom. Is that right?
That's it, exactly. The lawsuit shines a glaring light on how even the most carefully structured private contracts, confidential agreements between partners, they can completely unravel under this kind of scrutiny.
So all those NDAs and arbitration clauses, everything designed to keep things quiet.
They become fodder for public opinion. The discretion collapses when the issues intersect with allegations that go beyond a simple financial dispute, especially when those allegations involve family stability. What was once protected by that shroud of discretion is now being interpreted by the courts, by the media, by everyone.
It's a really potent cautionary tale. If that foundational trust is gone, no amount of legal structuring can guarantee confidentiality.
And that's the universal lesson for you, the listener. The moment that relationship becomes adversarial, any contract can become a tool for attack rather than a shield for privacy. The fragility of even airtight deals gets exposed.
That is a terrifying thought for any public figure. Okay, let's turn to our final revelation, which is about the lasting damage or maybe the permanent redefinition of their brands, their shared history.
Yes, and this is Revelation 5, a permanent, redefined public image for both stars.
This might be the most lasting one, because no matter who wins the money, the world's view of both of them has been permanently reshaped by these filings. Their shared history isn't just about their creative work anymore.
The legal strategy itself has become part of the narrative. When you pull back and look at the whole picture, every document filed, every statement made, it's all part of the history books now. It permanently alters how we see their decade together.
So, Jolie's legal strategy is positioned as her asserting boundaries, demanding accountability, making the fight for financial control a matter of principle.
Right. And conversely, Pitt's responses and his counterfilings are being closely examined by the public for what they reveal about power dynamics, about responsibility within that relationship. It's reputation management that has gone completely public.
So what this all boils down to is that their legacy, it's been fundamentally altered.
The synthesis is clear. Regardless of the final legal outcome, this case ensures their shared history will be defined as much by the courtroom drama, the allegations, the control struggles, as it was by the red carpet photos. This court battle is now arguably the defining chapter of their shared story.
Okay, and this is where it gets really interesting, because we've pulled out these 5 revelations, but they all connect to 3 huge overarching lessons that apply far beyond Hollywood.
They absolutely do. If you summarize the 3 main lessons from the filings, they are stark and they are universal. The first one is all about how fame interacts with conflict.
Right. Fame irrevocably magnifies conflict. In a normal divorce, details might stay between friends or family. Here, every single disagreement is broadcast globally. The pressure on the legal teams and on the individuals is it's exponentially greater.
It creates a feedback loop. The magnification increases the stakes, which encourages more extreme legal moves, which then further magnifies the conflict. For the listener, the takeaway is that conflict just accelerates rapidly when public exposure is guaranteed.
And the second massive lesson deals with the financial complexity. Wealth profoundly complicates separation.
This is key. When you have vast, interconnected business interests, joint investments, corporate structures all woven together over a decade, untangling that is so much harder than just dividing up personal assets. You're not just dissolving a marriage, you're liquidating a multinational business while the 2 main shareholders are actively hostile to each other.
Which means the complexity breeds longevity in the conflict. The longer it takes to untangle, the more time the original conflict has to fester and grow.
And that brings us to the third lesson. Unresolved power struggles echo for years. This case shows that the core issues of control and accountability, they don't just fade when the divorce is final, they fuel years of litigation in new arenas, like corporate lawsuits.
The initial problem, the collapse of trust in the power vacuum, it just migrated from family court to business court and became a $350 million question mark.
Exactly. It shows that if the fundamental issue of control isn't resolved early, it becomes the engine that drives years of costly, emotionally draining legal action. And that's true whether your business is a vineyard in France or a small partnership in your hometown.
So what we have here isn't just a high-profile drama, it's a deeply complex legal and personal reckoning that ruthlessly exposes the underbelly of high-level stardom, high finance, and deep family strife.
It's a study in consequences. We started with that massive figure, the 350 million, but it led us to focus entirely on these structural lessons about power, autonomy, and the fragility of private agreements.
What stands out to you as a final thought, looking at the fragility of these private structures that were supposed to hold up under pressure but just failed so publicly?
Given the sheer collapse of discretion we talked about, that even ironclad confidentiality clauses couldn't stop this from becoming public, we're left with a really provocative thought for you to consider. How might future high-profile partnerships, the ones with immense wealth and visibility, evolve their legal structuring to truly withstand a complete and total collapse of trust? That necessary adaptation may be shifting away from traditional NDAs toward completely segmented ownership from day one. That will be the next legal chapter we see written.